What's going on, everyone? Yesterday was an absolute great day for the Los Angeles Lakers. Anthony Davis had his return and was absolutely great in limited minutes and really showed why we need him and why he is so important. On top of that, you had Rui Hachimura. He had his debut. He looked solid, especially for a debut and a guy that just literally got with the team and hasn't even figured out like what his role and what he's supposed to be doing is, and still managed to be a point shy of his average and showed flashes of everything that we hoped that he would be. And we got the win against the San Antonio Spurs. And the San Antonio Spurs is a team that has been, mentioned with the Lakers since the offseason about a potential trade. And so far, no trade has come to fruition, right? Nothing has gotten done, although there have been heavy reports, especially from the Spurs side of things, that basically say like the Lakers are having dialogue, right? They're having conversations. They're working towards potential deals, that be involving Russell Westbrook, and then even other options like maybe Patrick Beverley, Lonnie Walker, stuff like that. We know that guys like Josh Richardson could be available for a second. And the Spurs, they want Russell Westbrook because they are under the cap threshold, so they want to kind of get over that. And then on top of that, they want the assets and kind of unload guys and get some value for some guys. And like the San Antonio Spurs have their reasons that as to why they want a guy like Russell Westbrook, right? Like you're going to have to pay the money regardless. So why not get an asset or two in the process, right? Because if you don't make the cap threshold, well, then that money has to go get paid out anyway, and it goes to the players, which is fine. But if you could get some free assets that help your organization, then why wouldn't you? And the asking price as we move closer is going to get down. But the big thing that we accomplished yesterday, and why I think it may be more likely going forward that a Spurs deal could get done, is now we don't play the Spurs for the rest of the season. So now, if the Spurs really are considering and want and interested in doing a trade, you could trade them to the Lakers, and now you don't have to worry about the awkward, like, oh, now we got to see these guys that we just traded, 2 or 3 more times this season. No, you're done, right? So you don't have to see these guys till next season, and at that point, like, all of the buzz is kind of gone down or whatever. And so you could, if you're San Antonio, work out a deal. Now, if this does happen, I don't think it happens until after this road trip. Get ready to ramp up to go on a big road trip that's going to be very important. And I don't think that a deal is going to get done in the middle of a road trip, right? I think that they'll want to come home, then reevaluate, and then kind of figure it out from there. But you never know. I mean, it could happen. It could happen today. It could happen tomorrow. And there are multiple ways that they could go about a Spurs deal. Now, obviously, there is the big grand slam trade, which is, Russell Westbrook for all 3 or even a combination of the 2, and to get like a massive trade exception, right? The Lakers seem to be in the market for a big man. They've worked out DeMarcus Cousins, Myers Leonard. There have been talks about like maybe Nerlens Noel being included in a Bojan Bogdanovic deal. Also, we know that Miles Turner, he was a target for the Lakers, and the Lakers almost even got that deal done. So you could get a guy like Jakob Poeltl, who does a lot of really good things. He's a good passer, a low post threat, a guy that can play some solid defense in the interior. He's not like, Anthony Davis level, and he's not like the shot blocker that Anthony Davis is, but he's just a very sturdy, solid center, a guy that can get you, 15 to 20 if you need him to. It's a guy that you could dump the ball down to and just kind of let him go to work on that low block, and just a guy that can come off the bench, could, start, could do whatever. And I know some people are kind of hit or miss when it comes to the Spurs. Like people either seem to love the Spurs deal or hate the Spurs deal. But the thing is, too, you got to keep in mind, the Spurs and the Lakers are in 2 very different places, right? One, the Spurs are trying to tank. So you see like these guys get a lot of like DMPs, or their minutes are inconsistent, or, like it's just, you can tell that like, okay, like, this is a team that's purposely trying to lose games here. But we've seen these guys, all 3 of these guys, have some real flashes this season. And they're three guys that could really come in and kind of solve a lot of the issues that the Lakers need, right? Lakers could use another big man that could rebound and stuff, right? Well, here you go. You got Jakob Poeltl. You'd also get a trade exception, so you could go get another piece if you wanted to, right? Especially if you could do this for one first. I don't like the idea of two firsts, and I don't think you should give up two firsts in this deal because Josh Richardson is valued at 1 second-round pick. Doug McDermott is probably around 1 second-round pick. So you're talking 2 seconds, and Jakob Poeltl, if he wasn't an expiring contract, might actually yield you a first-round pick. But I don't know how many teams would be willing to give a first-round pick for Jakob Poeltl. But maybe some team would. But the Lakers, maybe you could give up 1 first and maybe a second or two. And there you go. And I think that would be justifiable. You'd still have a first and you would have a trade exception. If you don't take Jakob Poeltl, right? Maybe you could get Doug McDermott and Josh Richardson for, just like, let's say 2 seconds. That would be great, right? And then you also have like a $21-22 million trade exception. So maybe teams would be more inclined to the trade exception rather than just players that they have to buy out that they don't really want. So like if you could go and get the trade exception, well, now you'd have your 2 first. You'd also still have Patrick Beverley. You'd still have, Lonnie Walker. You'd still have other guys that you could say like a Damian Jones or whatever. It just, the Spurs deal gives you flexibility and can also lead to like 4 players. And I know a lot of people feel like, you don't want to get too many people on the roster because then you got to rebuild new chemistry and you got to do this, that, and the other. But here's the thing, right? We are very likely, if we don't do a trade like this, going to have to do an entire roster haul again next season because the Lakers have all these guys that are expiring deals on vet minimum contracts that are all very likely going to leave, right? And so now you got to get a new roster and a new team, and through vet minimum deals and your mid-level and biannual and stuff. But for the most part, you're just kind of rehauling the roster. But if you could get deals to where you could keep some of these guys, like all 3 of these guys, you'd have birds too, and like you could re-sign and then give them what they want and extend them. They all would be reasonable and more reasonable trade chips. So like if you do need to make a move later on down the road or something, you have like reasonable contracts that you can move and unload and maybe get some other pieces. So I just think that the Lakers doing this deal could make a lot of sense. Right now, there's still other deals that I favor more, if I'm being honest. Like, I still really like the Hornets deal if you could get PJ Washington and you can kind of still get the 3 or 4 players that you want. I think, depending on if you could do some like big Pistons deal, like could you get Alec Burke, Bojan Bogdanovic, and like Nerlens Noel? I think that is better than this deal because I think Bojan's better than Doug McDermott. I think Alec Burke is better than Josh Richardson, and then Jakob Poeltl is better than Nerlens Noel. But Nerlens Noel might be a more better natural fit for the Lakers than Poeltl is, right? So I like there are definitely other deals, but what this also would do by doing like a big move like where you get 2, 3, 4 guys is, again, it gives you that stability, not only for this season, but seasons going forward. You can always build and learn and grow chemistry, right? And figure each other out and have fun and build relationships. But you can't really build talent. Guys improve, guys get better, but there's just guys that are just more naturally talented, right? And just upgrades and clear upgrades over guys that you already have. So if you can do those upgrades and you can be better, then why wouldn't you want to do that? Also, you would have, even if like, let's say worst case scenario, they just don't really blend, right? And then the chemistry is a little off. Well, you'd have an entire offseason, an entire training camp, an entire preseason, and then an entire season to build that chemistry, and hopefully you're a contender going forward. It just gives the Lakers more stability, which is important, which is key, and why I think the Lakers should definitely look at deals like this. But now that the Lakers don't have to see the Spurs anymore, it might actually make San Antonio more willing to do the deal because they're like, oh, we don't have to see any of these guys ever again. So we don't have to deal with like the awkwardness and like all that stuff. It's like, we trade them to Lakers and then we'll deal with playing these guys in the next season if we even run into them next season. But you can also there's so many interchangeable parts, right? Like you could get Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott. You could get Josh Richardson and Jakob Poeltl or Doug McDermott and Jakob Poeltl. And you could even do it without Russ. You don't even have to do the Russ deal. You could get pretty much any combination of these two without trading Russell Westbrook. You wouldn't be able to get all three, but you could get a combination. So like if the Lakers did just want, two of these three, like let's say they just want Josh Richardson and Doug McDermott, you could do that. You could get there if you wanted to. Or let's say they want Josh Richardson and Jakob Poeltl. You could get there rather easily and you don't have to worry about it. So I definitely think that the Lakers and the Spurs could get a deal done. Look, they've been talked about and referenced and having this back and forth dialogue since the Kyrie thing was a relevant thing, right? In the offseason. And usually when there's smoke, there's fire. Usually when there's people saying like, hey, they just keep talking, like usually that means that like both sides are interested and that there's something there. Does that mean that the deal gets complete? Of course not, right? What do they want? Are they willing to compromise? Are they willing to come down? Is there another deal that comes to the table that's better? There's just so many different ways that you could approach this and go about it. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But in general, look, I like the Spurs deal. I think it's a good deal. I think you get a guy in Josh Richardson. He's shooting 37% from three this season. He's a solid 3-and-D guy. He's got good size, traditional 2. And I know people say, oh, well, he's kind of like a Lonnie Walker type thing. And yes, he is. To me, he's kind of more of a case closer to KCP. But I do understand the Lonnie Walker idea and the thinking. But here's the thing. We're probably not going to be able to keep Lonnie Walker after this season. So Josh Richardson gives you that insurance, right? And even if Max Christie, like let's say Max Christie takes the next step, right? Or Austin Reeves. You could have Josh Richardson come off the bench. All these guys are from Pop and, the Spurs system. So they're all unselfish players. All three of these guys have came off the bench. All three of these guys have started, right? So like, and it doesn't matter. And the other thing is too, is when you're talking about bigs, especially come playoff time, you're going to have Anthony Davis play the 5, right? For important key matchups, key games, stuff like that. It's just how it's going to work. So if you do get another center, you need a center that is okay with, having to be a backup if you need to be a backup, right? Like to me, center is like at the bottom of the totem pole as far as like what the Lakers actually need via a deal or some type of trade. But if you can get that as like the add-on, still get your dead-eye shooter and Doug McDermott, still get like a guy like Josh Richardson who can, light it up from 3 and play some solid defense, then yeah, I think you do it. And then Jakob Poeltl is just kind of the add-on. But again, these are all very tradable guys, all very tradable pieces. So I wouldn't be surprised if the deal gets done. I do think it kind of makes more sense now, given that, the Spurs don't have to see the Lakers again. So they don't have to face these guys again at any point this season. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think a deal gets done? Do you think it doesn't? Would you be all for a deal? Do you have another deal that you prefer more? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, love to hear it. Let me know down in the comment section below.